Overview of capital budgets versus operating budgets. So far, we have mostly been talking about operating budgets. Our example last week focused on an operating budget for a First Nation education department. The other type of budget that comes into play within an organization is the capital budget. You'll note that when we walk through the operating budget example for the two scenarios, new preschool versus new community recreation facility, we did not allocate funding for the building of either the preschool or the community recreation facility to the education budget. This is because the education budget was an operating budget, which is meant to plan for spending on non-capital items. Capital items include physical assets such as property, buildings, and industrial plant, technology, and equipment. Therefore, in last week's new preschool versus new community recreation scenarios, there would have been separate capital budgets for each scenario created by the Budget Office, or a capital review committee, which would forecast the long-term costs of building the new facilities. Normally, ongoing building maintenance and depreciation costs are accounted for in the operating budget. Therefore, it's quite possible that an operating budget such as the Education Department budget would build in annual depreciation and maintenance costs for a new preschool. For the sake of simplicity, we're assuming in our new preschool budget scenario number 1 that depreciation and ongoing maintenance costs for the new preschool are being paid out of another operating budget, such as the Head Start, Youth and Family, or the Healthcare budget. Accounting for capital expenses, commonly known as CapEx, is handled differently than for operating expenses, commonly known as OpEx. Capital expenses show up on the balance sheet as an investment, rather than on the income statement as an expenditure. Capital expenses are handled differently than operating expenses, in that they are determined to have a specified number of years of useful life, and therefore have an annual depreciation value. Those preparing funding requests should keep in mind these points. Firstly, capital and operating budgets usually apply different criteria for prioritizing requests and deciding spending. Secondly, many proposals include both CapEx and OpEx spending. As a result, those asking for funding in such cases must state what they need from the capital budget and what they need from the operating budget. Thirdly, as a result, the wise manager, therefore, writes the funding request and its business case with an eye on both sets of decision criteria. In brief, those who submit funding requests are asking their employers to spend. Proposal writers serve their interests, therefore, by learning thoroughly how the entity plans and how it uses the funds.